Hello everyone, my name is Matt Sharif and I'd like to welcome you to Ultraviolet Network's Intro to Fortigate. Throughout this series, we're going to cover a number of topics in regards to Fortigate, starting with Fortigate Registration. So before we can even get started with using Fortigate, we want to register it. So this first module is going to cover the registration and the enrollment with FortiCare Cloud. From there, this series will go on to showing you some of the first things you may want to consider doing with your Fortigate and other basic configuration tasks. There's plans in the future for additional content for more advanced topics. I will definitely provide a suggestions inbox for any of you who have suggestions or have topics you want to see. I definitely look forward to hearing from you. So getting into this, the assumptions on this are very, very simple. Question is the first assumption is that you have a FortiGate. For this case, we have a FortiGate, FortiWi-Fi 81F2R. 2R just means that there's a 2 radio access point built into this. And there's a reason I chose this for the later videos. It's got everything that you may encounter on a FortiGate of this size. It's got an integrated switch fabric, it's got an AP, and it's got a software switch that bridges the AP with the integrated switch fabric to a single LAN. In subsequent videos, I'll show you how to break those apart and utilize them individually if you so choose. However, right now, in the purpose of this video, we're going to go ahead and walk through the registration. Second assumption is you have access to the serial number, which is on the bottom side here, and you have access to the FortiCloud key, which is on the top side here on the sticker. This is probably more important than the bottom one. The reason why is the bottom one you can get out of the CLI. The FortiCloud key, the only place you can get that is off this top sticker here. But wait, I can register the FortiGate from the UI. Absolutely true, and you don't need any of that information at that point. The reason I'm showing this method of registration is due to the fact that it's more reliable and I've had a lot more success with it. One of the things with the UI is when you go to pull the drop down list of your resellers, it takes a while to populate, and the reason why is it's actually live querying that from FortiGuard, whereas on the website it's right there and present, so you don't have to wait for that. So that's just a personal preference thing, and this is what this video is going to cover. So the first step in the registration process is going to be going to support.fortinet.com. To get the FortiGate registered, we are going to need to create a FortiCare account. So in this case, I don't already have one for the purposes of this video, and many of you may not already. So if you do, great. If not, go ahead and follow along. First thing we're going to do is going to click register, and the registration is going to ask you for your email. In this case, I'm going to put my email in. Next, and they're going to email you a CAPTCHA code, and we're going to check our email for the CAPTCHA code. Be right back. So once you've put in the registration code or the security code that's set in your previous email, as well as verified the CAPTCHA, you're going to be asked to create your account and put in a new password. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new password, and I'll see you on the next screen. So we've gone ahead, created our password, and it's going to ask you for your demographics. I'm going to go ahead and fill this in, and I will see you on the next screen. So once you've filled in your demographic information, you're going to go ahead and see the Fortinet service terms and conditions. Take your time to read through these, as these can be legally binding, these are legally binding, and don't take legal advice from some guy doing videos on the web. I've read this, so I'm comfortable with I've read and understood. So I'll go ahead and register. Perfect. So now we're here and we get logged in. So you're going to log in with the credentials you just created, and then we can move on to registration. I'll see you once we're logged in. Once you're logged in, you'll see, welcome back, whoever you are, in this case me. Start registering Fortinet products. Now, this is when you're going to want the product I just flashed, I just mentioned. So you're going to want the serial number from the device, which is located on the bottom. It's typically right underneath the model, and it usually starts with something indicating the model and the series. So for the Wi-Fi 81F, mine is going to start with FWF 81F. So we'll go ahead and click register now. Non-government user in my case, and I'm going to go ahead and put my serial number in. Next, and the FortiCloud key is required on these smaller series devices, so I'm going to go ahead and put mine in. This is a one-time use key, and even though there's a space on the sticker, you don't include the space here. Okay. If you have any additional support contracts you'd like to add here, let's say you bought the Unified Threat Protection bundle, but would like to add, but also bought the security rating and the industrial security service of that, you would go ahead and tack those on in here. This is optional. The Fortinet partner that you purchased this from is also, it's a required field. However, you can choose unknown, or if you know your actual reseller here, you can go ahead and put that there. As far as the asset folder, this is just a way of organizing your assets. If you want, you can create a folder and then put that into it later, so we don't have to redo this registration process. And then click next. This is going to tell you the terms and conditions and the actual what is legally binding regarding this device and the services offered by FortiCare. In this case, I'm going to click I have read and understood and accepted the stated above. And this tells me when the services start. And I'm going to go ahead and click I accept these terms, and we're going to go ahead and enable these services. So now my product, I am done. My FortiGate is registered. Now, if you have a VM, you probably would have been given something that is a long, looks like a long product key, akin to the old Windows product keys. In that case, you would still follow the same registration process. If you have something that Fortinet calls a Flex VM token, the activation process for that is different, and it's not in the scope of this video, but I will create a video at a later time to go ahead and cover that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go plug my FortiGate in so I can actually show you what we need to do next. So now we've gone and plugged in our FortiGate, and I'm waiting for it to boot. I'm going to bring my console connection up in here. So I'm using a program on macOS called Serial. You can use Putty. You can use the screen utility from the CLI. It's really up to you. For the Windows users, you can use Putty. What's important here is your settings. Is it's 9600 baud rate, 8 bits, none, 1, 96, 8, and 1 essentially. And if you would like, I can actually pull the settings up here a little bit more closely so you can actually take a look at those as the FortiGate's booting. Once the FortiGate's done booting, as you can see it is done now, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to get logged into it, and we're going to assign an IP address to the WAN interface, as well as have it register with FortiCloud so that it can receive the updates and the entitlements that we just activated. So the default password, the default username is admin. There is no default password. It's blank. As soon as you hit enter on that, it's going to prompt you to change your password. So let's go ahead and do that. This is my preferred method of connecting and setting IPs on the FortiGate. For the smaller models, you have a couple of ways of doing this. So the WAN interface on these devices is set for DHCP. So if you're getting DHCP from your ISP, all you need to do is get it plugged in, and it'll eventually register up to FortiCare. If you just plug into the LAN side, you'll get an IP address and the default gateway will be .99, and you'll log into that, and you can actually set your WAN IP from there. My preferred method, and the reason I prefer this is it's specific, and I get to set it exactly the way I want, is I just hop into the CLI, and then once we've set the WAN IP, I can log into it real quick, and then we're going to go ahead and pull down the updates. Okay, so we're gonna config system interface, edit WAN 1, as that's the port I plugged into. Set mode static for my case by default. Actually, let's do this real quick. If you do a show full, which is a show full configuration, it'll tell you exactly what's set. It typically omits the defaults, and as you can see, there's quite a bit that's already set there. So set mode DHCP. In this case, I need it set mode static. The next thing I want to do is actually set my IP address. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this typed in. And the FortiGate will accept CIDR notation or dotted decimal notation. In this case, I'm just going to do CIDR notation. And you can say set allow access HTTPS. So for right now, that's all we're going to do. And now we can go ahead and go to config router static. We need a static route for quad 0. So we're going to edit 0. One of the things to note is not all lists or not all configuration items support this in FortiOS. However, where supported, 0 means give me the next available sequence number. In this case, it's still brand new, so there's nothing there. I could have just as easily done edit 1, but as a best practice, I like to use 0 so that I make sure that I'm not screwing up anything that I've already got in place. Alright, so set DST, that's our destination. It's going to be quad 0, and I forget that I have to add the 0 there in the end, and then set device, not distance, device WAN 1. At this point, I should have everything I need for it to reach the internet. Now, one thing to point out with FortiOS, as soon as you type end, it commits this to Flash, so there's no copy run start or commit confirm to this. There are features that allow us to do rollback or basically do a rollback essentially when something goes wrong with the configuration, but by default, once you type end, it applies the configuration. Alright, so let's go ahead and do a test real quick. Execute ping www.google.com. Maybe our DNS service isn't working. Oh yes, beware of brain farts. Config router static edit, and if we do a show now, you'll see it automatically assigned to 1. So I'll do edit 1 set gateway 5.3.1.1.1. I forgot about that. My apologies, folks. Now, if we try that again, hey, look at that. That works. Okay, good deal. So let's go ahead and turn our attention to the browser here real quick, and let's get logged in. Once we get logged in, as you can see, it comes with a factory assigned cert. One of the first things you're going to want to do is get that replaced, and we'll cover that in the next video. So once you get logged in, a few things to note. As you can see, I've already got this registered, and none of these services are yet licensed, or at least it's not showing that. How they are licensed, however, I need to run an execute update now. So the way we do this is execute update now, and that's going to go ahead and run the update process for me. Another way to do that is to go here and click on update AV and IPS definitions. However, I typically just prefer going to the CLI. Now, one thing I want to point back as I bounce back to the status page is that we're running a relatively old version of code here. 6.2, I believe, is end of engineering support as of this time, as of this recording, with 7.2 being out. 7.0 and 6.4 are the supported long-term or supported stable releases. I know some of you may disagree and say, you know, 7.0 is still just roll with me here. So the next thing you're going to want to do is go under support, firmware download, Fortigate, and in this case I'm going to stick with Fortigate, and I'm going to go to 7.05. Now, one thing I will point out, what I'm about to do should only ever be done once, and that is when you first unbox a Fortigate. You should never do this in production. I'm going straight to 7.05. If this device is in production or any kind of configuration change aside from assigning an IP to a port has been made, you really want to follow the upgrade path tool here, and this will tell you exactly what that would look like. So if I go to FortiWi-Fi ADF2R, and my current version is, I think I'm on 6.2.10. Guess we don't roll that far back, and I want to go to 7.05. What we need to do is go to 6.4.8 and then go to 7.05. So be very mindful of this. The only reason I'm doing this is because this is a brand new FortiGate and I have zero configuration on it. As we go back to this, now for those of you who don't want to roll with 7.0, completely cool. The latest version as of this recording is 6.4.9. I encourage you to download that and install that. A lot of the behavior has changed here. So I'm going to find the image that best fits my device. So if you take a look, you have a number of different ADFs here, or FortiWi-Fi ADFs. There's the 2 ADF, 2 radio, FortiWi-Fi 81F 2 radio, 3G, 4G. So that has a built-in LTE modem. There's an 81F2R PoE, so that provides its own PoE, and then 81F2R. The 81F2R is the one I have. It's very important that you download the image that fits your platform, and if you've ever got any questions as to what model you have, you can take a look really quick by going to the CLI and typing in get sys system status, and that's going to tell you exactly what you got right there. So I have a Forti Wi-Fi 81F2R. There's no mistaking that. So now I know I can download the FWF 81F2R. It shouldn't be an issue. And save that. And the upgrade process is pretty simple. I do want to show you that the CLI or the device will provide you with the upgrade path that you should follow if this were a production. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and go straight to 705. If I were to follow this would download the code for me and back up the config and upgrade. Being that this is new, we're going to go ahead and just go straight to 705. Okay, so we've got that there. It's yelling at me saying, hey, valid upgrade path cannot be determined for what you're trying to do. So let's, go ahead and back up the config upgrade. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'll see you all when I come back. All right, so it's uploading this, and we're just going to go ahead and watch this via the console. And one way to check on your device entitlements, as you can see, it said none of that was licensed on mine. If I go back here and check, I just don't believe it's downloaded its entitlements yet. Excuse me. I am licensed for a year on all of this, so it's just going to be a question of running that update now. And once that is done running and updating, as you can see, the firmware upgrades in process. We'll go ahead and get that pulled down. Alright, looks like the firewall's coming back up. Typically, system is starting is one of the very last things we see after an upgrade. It's probably going to show a couple of errors, that there are some configuration bits that didn't move over. I'll go over that with you just so you know how to read that. For me, it's probably going to be primarily dashboard driven, and I'm okay with that. So through the magic of video editing, I'll see you as soon as I have a logon prompt. Okay, so we're done booting, it appears, or we're getting pretty close to it. Maybe I just need to hit enter. Still kind of thinking. So you see the config file may contain errors, and the diag debug config error log read is basically just tell me what's going on with the config. So we'll come back to that in a moment. I want to get logged in. And I'm going to go ahead and come back to the hostname later. As you can see, we've done everything else. So I'm also going to turn this off because I don't like being prompted with that information right off the bat. So as you can see, all of my my antivirus web filtering have come through. The security rating will not come through because this unit is not licensed for that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that command that it provided. So diagnose, debug, config error log read. So as you can see, there's some information as far as the policy, the IPv6 policy, the IP and the IPv6 to 4 policy, and the IPv4 to 6 policy. We can go ahead and take a look at those if you want. The rest of these are regarding replacement messages. I don't particularly care for those. However, if this really causes you a lot of heartburn, you can go ahead and factory reset at this point, because all we've done is set the IP and the username and password. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep these. I'm okay with that. We're just going to go through these and see what it's thinking. Oh, yes, I remember. That's right. They've gone from the firewall policies being IPv6 or IPv4 based, and they've just consolidated it into a single view. So just keep that in mind. This is something I've noticed that happens on newer versions of code. At the beginning, after a reboot, it says cannot connect to FortiGuard servers. So I typically do a refresh, and that usually sorts it out. However, give it a few minutes, and it'll actually be able to get that information. So that's really all there is to it, to registering a FortiGate. We even got a little bit of changing the WAN IP if you so need to. Upgraded the code. So at this point, you're really ready to start configuring, depending on what it is you're hoping to achieve. In our next video, we'll take a look at the LAN configuration, as well as a few additional areas of consideration before we actually put a device in production. Thank you for watching. I really hope this has been informative. If you like this video, please click the like down below and subscribe for future content. Thank you.